I'm here in the studio closet ready to talk about everyone's favorite dog lover, John Wick, and how you can get this film look using Davinci Resolve. Let's take a look at a clip from the trailer.
Nice ride.
Thanks.
How much?
Excuse me.
How much for the car?
She's not for sale.
I've done my best to make this clip look as close to raw footage that came out of the camera as possible. Now, this was downloaded from YouTube, so it's obviously going to have a substantial loss in quality. Here it is.
Nice ride.
Thanks.
How much?
Excuse me.
How much for the car?
She's not for sale.
Alright, I've loaded my clips side by side in Davinci Resolve. I'm using the free version, by the way. Let's turn off split screen and look at the original film and open up our vector scope. The vector scope corresponds with the colors on the color wheel and gives us a basic understanding of the image. Now, it should be easy to tell without a vector scope that John Wick is a cold-hearted film. The colors almost always stay south of the horizontal line, leaning heavily into cyan with a slight pull towards green and blue. Now, John Wick is also a very dark movie. Evidence of this can be seen in the waveform, which shows the majority of our colors down at the bottom here near 0 or black, with the lightest parts of the image tapering off around 600 instead of up towards the top here. This creates a dark contrast that conceals details. Sounds a bit like our main protagonist, eh? I'll open up my demo clip and first adjust for exposure. I like that shot right there. Let's keep our waveform open and open up our primary bars. Now drag the far left luminance bar under gain or highlights down until the peaks of our highlights just reach 600. Now let's drag our shadows down or our lift until it's right at 0. So let's label this node exposure and create a new serial node and call it color. Now open up the parade scope. We're going to isolate our channels by setting the loom mix to 0. Now if we compare this to the original film on the right here, we can see in the parade scope that there is quite a bit of greens in the highlights. So we'll raise the green channel under our gain until the highlights just reach the top bar. There is also almost as much blue in the highlights, so we're going to raise our blues up to about the second bar from the top, not quite as much as the greens. And we'll bring the reds up until they're barely touching the third line from the top. There's not nearly as much red in the highlights as green and blues. If we take a look back at the original film, we'll see that the midtones of the greens and the blues fall mostly between the two bars closest to the bottom here. And the red midtones are going to be all squished between the first bar and 0. So we'll need to lower the gamma for each accordingly. So now that we've cooled off our colors, it's time to take the life out of them. Open another serial node and call this one saturation. Let's take a look at the original clip. If we open our vector scope, we can see that the original film is lightly desaturated from the limits of the hexagon right here in the greens, cyans, and blues, and heavily desaturated in the yellows, the reds, and the magentas. Let's go back to our original clip and open up our curves. We're going to open our hue versus saturation curve. Now we'll make a few points and we'll drag down the reds, magentas, and yellows. So now that we've adjusted for individual saturation values, we are going to bring our global saturation down to match the vector scope of the original film. And how we do that is by the global saturation meter on our primary bars. Now our footage is looking pretty good, but there's one final adjustment we need to make, and that's contrast. we'll add a serial node and we will title this one, you guessed it, Contrast. Now let's open up our curves, the custom curve, and our Y luminance curve. Now I'll make a few points and I'll drag the curve down towards the shadows in the lower midtones and raise the highlights just a tad. And that's it. Now this is a look that gives your film a dark, melodramatic tone that's used in many sci-fis and emotional thrillers. Now let's compare the before and after. Thanks for joining me.
Nice ride.
Thanks.
How much?
Excuse me.
How much for the car?
She's not for sale.